All right, let's just jump right in. The material we're looking at today makes a pretty wild claim that the reality you and I experience is being systematically replaced. And we're going to break down exactly how, layer by layer. And right off the bat, the source is really clear on this. This isn't some abstract philosophical idea. Nope, it's presented as a literal process, something that's happening right now, the replacement of what's real with a carefully constructed simulation. So, according to this framework, the whole replacement thing happens across 6 distinct layers. And we're going to peel back every single one of them from the bottom up to see how this machinery is actually built. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll hit the foundation, a world of symbols. Then, conditioning through content. After that, we get to the heart of it all, the engine of division. And then the final layer, politics as performance. And we'll wrap up with what the source says is the whole point. Seeing the machinery for yourself.
Okay, so let's get into layer 1, the absolute foundation of this whole simulation, the world of symbols. This is all about the big shift from, actually living life to just consuming a pre-packaged version of it. What's so key here is this distinction. See, we used to be grounded in direct experience. Now, we experience coverage. We don't live through an event, we live through someone else's pre-framed story about it. A headline replaces actual understanding. A label replaces a whole person. I mean, think about it. You don't actually experience a protest. You experience the coverage of a protest, and that is a totally different thing. We're living in that symbolic layer. And this just nails the point. The word brand, it's not just some harmless marketing term. Its origin is literally about burning a mark into an animal to make it easy to sort and identify. The source argues that this exact same process is now being applied to us. And these? Well, according to the source, these are the modern-day branding irons. They stamp us with labels and predictable patterns. And the goal is simple, to make us easier to sort, to know exactly what we'll get angry about, who we'll vote for, and what we'll buy, long before we even think we're making a choice. So how does all this branding actually turn into control? Well, that brings us to the second layer, conditioning. Because once you're living mostly in a world of symbols, your behavior inside that world can be shaped, it can be trained, and it can be reinforced. The source calls the tools for this conditioning signals. You know what this is. It's the likes, the shares, the retweets, the algorithmic rewards. The rule is dead simple. Whatever gets rewarded gets repeated. Whatever gets ignored just disappears. This whole system trains us to flatten out our personalities into something predictable, something that performs well online. Now, for this conditioning to really lock in, the source says that information has to be replaced by content. And this difference is absolutely critical. See, information resolves things. It answers a question and you can move on. But content? Content is designed to do the exact opposite. It's built to get a response from you, to occupy your attention, and specifically to prevent resolution. Because the second you have a real answer, the engagement cycle ends. And here's where we get to the personal cost of all this constant performing. When you're always asking, how will this look? Instead of, is this really how I feel? Something inside just breaks. The source calls this the death of authenticity, and it leaves people with this deep, nagging sense of hollowness. This feeling of being hollow, it creates a void. And according to the source, that void gets filled by the next 3 layers of the simulation, which all work together as the engine of division. This is where the system weaponizes fear and prepackaged stories to just tear society apart. So, why fear? Because nothing, and I mean nothing, works better. The source is very clear. Fear is the ultimate engagement hack. It makes us react faster, think less, share more, and remember things way more intensely. Any algorithm that's designed to maximize engagement is going to learn, inevitably, to prioritize fear. And here is the step-by-step playbook for how that fear gets rolled out. The source calls it the narrative machine. Before you even have a moment to process an event on your own, bam, a fully formed story arrives. It instantly tells you who the good guys are, who the bad guys are, and exactly how you're supposed to feel about it. Nuance? That's the first thing to go, because nuance slows down your reaction, and your immediate emotional reaction is the product. From this point of view, the whole political divide isn't a real battle of ideas, it's just really effective audience segmentation. It's like marketing. The goal is to create 2 emotional markets with 2 predictable sets of reactions.
And the source argues that while the two sides are kept busy fighting each other over symbols, the actual machinery running the show is never even questioned. So, if our identities can be programmed and division is the engine that runs it all, what does that make politics? Well, according to the source, it becomes the sixth and final layer, one big performance, the theater of power. This quote really just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? The argument here is that modern politics isn't a system for solving problems anymore. It's a stage, and it's designed to keep an audience emotionally hooked and completely occupied. And this explains so much, right? We see these dramatic hearings that go absolutely nowhere. We hear these fiery speeches that change nothing. Scandals blow up and then just poof, they vanish without any real consequences. The source says these aren't failures of the system, they are the system working perfectly, producing endless drama to keep our attention. The goal isn't progress, it's engagement. So, after going down through all these layers of symbols, conditioning, and performance, what is the point? What are we supposed to take away from all of this? And the answer is surprisingly simple. The goal isn't to rage against the machine or try to tear it all down. The main act of freedom, according to this analysis, is just to see the machinery clearly, to finally understand the rules of the stage that you're standing on. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. The manipulation starts to lose its power over you. A prepackaged story just feels obvious. An emotional trigger feels clumsy. You stop reacting on cue because now you can see the strings. The performance becomes totally transparent. And that's the final thought this source leaves us with. It turns the whole thing back on you. Now that you've been shown these layers, from the world of symbols all the way to the theater of power, what parts of your own world suddenly look a lot more like a performance? What do you see differently?